Dave Spadaro joining me now from PhiladelphiaEagles.com to preview the season. Hey, Dave, thanks for taking a couple minutes here. Let me start with the last training camp sort of wrap up before the regular season and how that ended. What's the fallout or the takeaway from an energetic, shall we say, wrap up to the preseason?
Everybody understood I think it was very clear that skirmishes against both the Browns and the Colts demonstrate that there is a bit of passion, much more than a regular practice for players, and it meant something. And so, look, the good news is nobody got hurt, and but it was a lively way, to say the least, to end the single practice against the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, look, for me, I think that you always look. I've been here a long time, been through 3 Super Bowl teams, and the season prior, when you go to the Super Bowl and you win, it's very challenging to come back after that. There's a hangover of sorts. When you go to the Super Bowl and lose, there's a different kind of hangover. And I think that the Eagles demonstrated by easing off the players in the spring that when they got training camp time, making sure that they were really strategic in how they were putting the players on the field, how long the practices were. I saw a team that had a lot of energy and that is coming back with a sense of purpose and that is not feeling and thinking about 2022 and the missed opportunity against the Kansas City Chiefs. So, I mean, as it stands now, as it looks now, a really good football team. They reloaded the roster. They've got a really nice influx of young players who are competing with some of these veterans who've been around here for some time. And I think the Eagles at this point go into 2023 when the regular season begins against the Patriots. They feel really confident about what kind of football team they'll put on the field.
I think it's a great point that you make that it's difficult to come back after winning a Super Bowl and really difficult to come back after a heartbreaker as well. Has there been any specific messaging at training camp that you've picked up on from the team about how they are actually going to move forward? Because even, a little bit of time away, I imagine that is a source of motivation, a stinging point, something that is going to take a little bit of time to get over.
Yeah, Carolyn, I mean, Nick Sirianni and his people really spent a lot of time in the offseason researching the right way to approach 2023. And look, from a keep the field off a team off the field in the spring until May, late May, and only have 6 organized team activity practices, to really emphasizing that last year was last year. You can't change the results. You can only move forward starting at the bottom of the ladder. And I think there are some teams maybe that come back from a Super Bowl and think, okay, we're going to just run this back and come back together. We're going to be a good football team. And maybe along the way they might sidestep or overlook a micro step. And I think what Nick really emphasized is that no, this team has to be painstakingly detailed in the minutia of going step by step by step, rung by rung by rung up the ladder. And while that doesn't lend itself to an exciting day to day, he kind of tries to spice things up with a lot of speeches and guest speakers and movies and competitions and ways to connect. It's the right way to do it. You're starting at the bottom. Everybody's 0-0. What you did last year was really impressive, tough loss, but that doesn't get you anything for right now. And the only way to win in 2023 is to be really detailed in your work. And so that's been what I've heard all training camp is last year's last year. We're going to go one step at a time here. And hopefully we know that we have a chance to be a really good team. And hopefully they're saying, the players, that we're going to just go really in the same manner that we took last year and have the same kind of success, of course, with one victory at the end more.
With how they're built, Dave, heading into this season, how high should the expectations be for productivity on the field? And which other teams in the NFC do you see as true potential threats?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles should be looked at as a legitimate, and I think they are, I think everybody would agree, a legitimate Super Bowl contending team. It is a team that lost some pieces in free agency, but retained some pieces in free agency. Then went into the draft and really had an outstanding draft weekend, not only selecting some college players, but trading for DeAndre Swift, who will be a big part of this offense. I mean, it is a very, very complete roster, an experienced team with a quarterback who August 7th, he turned 25 years old. It's ridiculous how good Jalen Hurts is, how mature he is. I don't think it's going to be as easy in the NFC as many think it will be. I think the Dallas Cowboys are a really talented team. I think the NFC East overall is one of the best in the NFL. 3 teams making the playoffs last year. I think that the Green Bay Packers, I happen to believe, having watched Jordan Love play last year, that he's a very talented young quarterback, and the Packers have some outstanding pieces around him. I think the Packers will be a factor. And, of course, the San Francisco 49ers getting back Brock Purdy, adding Javon Hargrave, veteran coaching staff. They run the football really well. Defense is outstanding. I think those are some of the contenders in the NFC. And that's not even considering an AFC that is absolutely loaded with talent, with great quarterbacks through and through. So it's really tough to repeat. There's a reason teams don't repeat. And the Eagles have a schedule that includes just one 1 o'clock game at home. So they're all over the place, different times, different time zones, really tough schedule. It's going to be a rough road back for the Philadelphia Eagles, something I think they are very aware of.
Not to diverge too much, but I think it's interesting that you bring up the Packers and Jordan Love and the Colts. I mean, and the Cowboys, excuse me. I mean, just watching the Cowboys last season, I happen to live with a Cowboys fan. So, I mean, the disappointment
Sorry to hear that.
on a weekly basis, I know, me too. I'm a Giants fan. On a weekly basis is just, it was unreal, and the team underperformed so much. And then you bring up Jordan Love as well, who got a couple reps on the big stage, but I think left a lot of people wanting more, although the expectations were sky high for him, just getting a brief moment to shine. What about Jordan Love specifically did you like that you saw when you watched him get those opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles played the Packers, and they got a big lead. And then, Aaron Rodgers went out, Jordan Love came in, and he moved the football. He got the ball out quickly. He was accurate. He had very good chemistry with his receivers. I saw poise. Now, I know it was late in the game, and I know maybe the intensity wasn't 100% there, but I thought the Eagles were playing hard, and Jordan Love threw the ball well. And I think having been around the league for a few years here, he's been ingrained enough to get the X's and O's. He's got the mental reps. So now it's going out and doing it physically. Green Bay's got a good supporting cast. They've got a good scheme offensively. I just think Jordan Love is ready to follow in what Aaron Rodgers did when Aaron Rodgers sat out a few years waiting for Brett Favre to move on and stepped right in, and the Packers didn't skip a beat. It would not surprise me at all if the Packers stay at the very top of a much better division and are competitors in the NFC. And by the way, I don't want to shortchange your New York Giants. I thought what they did was really impressive last year. The one thing about the Giants to me is you've got to get more out of the passing game. And I know Darren Waller is a real threat at tight end. I'm just not sure that offense is as explosive as it needs to be. So we'll see. I mean, New York really made great strides with Brian Dable. They believe in him. The defense should be good. And again, part of an NFC East that sent 3 teams to the playoffs last year. There's some sneaky good teams in this conference.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think there's some surprises this season that people might not be betting on right now that could make things really interesting. Just back to Philadelphia positionally, you talked about the growth of Jalen Hurts a little bit. I'm wondering if you think there's another step that he could maybe take this season that you're watching for. And then as you assess both the offense and the defense, where the holes are that might be glaring.
Yeah, I will tell you that with Jalen, there aren't a lot of steps to take. He became a really good pocket passer last year, and I think that was a very important step in his maturation. I think that if you can get his completion percentage from 66% to 70%, that might be represent a nice next step. And with DeAndre Swift and Kenny Gainwell and a backfield that may be more involved in the pass game than in recent years, I think that's a possibility. Got to stay healthy. He missed a couple of games last season, which had an impact on the Eagles' offense. I will tell you, prior to the Super Bowl, we hadn't seen Jalen really come back a lot in the fourth quarter. But when you're 8 points down against the Kansas City Chiefs and you engineer a drive and you get into the end zone and you score a 2-point conversion and you show that you can come back in fourth quarters, that's really not an issue anymore. I mean, otherwise, Jalen is a really great product who's surrounded by a lot of greatness. Outstanding offensive line, terrific wide receiver core, great tight end in Dallas Goedert. I mean, there are a lot of pieces in place for Jalen. I think a key for him will be the transition to a new coordinator. Brian Johnson was his quarterback's coach last year, has been the last couple of years. Now he's the offensive coordinator, replacing Shane Steichen, who's in Indianapolis. So there may be a bit of a transition there, a learning curve. I don't anticipate it being gigantic, but it could be something. And then otherwise, look, adapting and having another card up your sleeve, because defenses have been spending the entire offseason trying to figure out Jalen Hurts, trying to slow down this offense. And there will be some answers. Bill Belichick in week 1 will have a good scheme for Jalen Hurts. How do the Eagles and Jalen respond to that? I always go back to the days of Chip Kelly and that first year, 2013, in the NFL. Fast-paced offense, boom, boom, running gun. Duh. He didn't have another card up his sleeve. Defenses adjusted to him. And by the end of his second year, that offense was really slowed to a halt. Jalen Hurts, now that he is a star, and a bona fide star, certainly needs to have that next card up his sleeve. Now, holes for this Eagles team. I don't see a lot of them on offense. The defense has 5 starters to replace a linebacker group that is questionable, with a first-time starter in Nakobe Dean in the middle, off-ball linebacker. Don't really have an answer right now. Safeties, 2 new safeties. How do they transition there? 2 older cornerbacks that really need that front 7, which had 70 quarterback sacks last year, to have that same kind of impact. I know it's a problem that many teams would love to have as their number one problem, but punter is Aaron Sipas, who right now is the only punter on the roster. They brought in a young kid after the draft, and he was here for competition. He was released this week. Sipas is the only punter on the roster. Is he good enough? That punting game, the special teams cost the Eagles in the Super Bowl with a long punt return that set up the Chiefs for a late game touchdown. So there are some questions there. The defense couldn't get off the field against the Chiefs in the second half. Can new defensive coordinator Sean Desai adapt when he's facing great quarterbacks? They're going to face the Chiefs. They're going to face the Niners. They're going to face the Bills. They're going to face the Cowboys twice. Daniel Jones, good quarterback in New York. I mean, Packers. There's a lot of good quarterbacks and offenses on the schedule this year. Is the defense with so many new faces up to the challenge?
Yeah, and
so as good as the Eagles look, there are questions.
Yeah, I know. I was just sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say it's interesting that the changes for both coordinators, because I feel like on both sides of the ball, they're going to be tasked with not only switching it up and making it a little bit more interesting, making it tougher to figure out what Jalen Hurts might be prone to do, but then defensively as well, they've got all these issues. And special teams is one of those things, better than me, that it seems like a checklist item, and then it can absolutely break your spirit in a lot of games. Just one specific positional question about the offense. There's been so much made this offseason, Dave, about the value at the running back position, our offense is adapting and changing. What is the plan for the Eagles at running back? Do they have a lead back? Is it more by committee? What are you seeing from that group?
Yeah, Carolyn, I think it's an interesting group. Kenny Gainwell, who is in his 3rd season last year, led the Eagles in rushing yards from scrimmage in the 3 playoff games. This is his turn to have more of a central role. But by no means does that mean he's going to be a 20 carry a game player, because they trade for DeAndre Swift, who, again, brings a lot of versatility, great in the passing game, explosive outside of the tackles. He'll get some carries. Rashad Penny, who has always been so productive with the Seattle Seahawks, 6.2 yards per carry, but he's had so many catastrophic injuries, the latest a broken leg last year. Can you keep him healthy, running behind a big, strong, outstanding offensive line? The Eagles have worked on that with Penny He's looked good in the preseason. He's healthy right now. If he stays healthy, he could have a really, really big season. Boston Scott does a little bit of everything very well. Trey Sermon trying to make the roster after a great career at Oklahoma, at Ohio State. High draft pick in San Francisco, gets cut in his second season. Last year spends most of the season, all of the season, on the Eagles active roster and was only active for a couple of games, only had 2 carries. So it is a by committee group with a lot of different skills, running behind an outstanding offensive line. They lose Miles Sanders, a Pro Bowl running back, and they think they might be better at the position. So that's kind of a rare thought, and one that we'll see if it proves true or not this year. It'll be done with a collective group, not one player like it was last year with Sanders.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'll wrap up with this, Dave, because I know I've kept you for too long already. But Jalen Carter, some of the rookies, the new faces, this infusion of talent. Carter, a player that a lot of people valued so highly, some off the field, maybe question marks, concerns, although sometimes more is made about those and sometimes less is made about what may or may not be happening off the field. But what are your impressions of him and some of the younger guys that might be able to continue to add to the depth?
Yeah, it's last year's draft class with Jordan Davis from Georgia, Nakobe Dean from Georgia, Cam Jurgens from Nebraska. They didn't play a whole lot. They are all projected to have major roles, starting roles. Jurgens at right guard, Nakobe Dean at middle linebacker, Jordan Davis at defensive tackle. Jalen Carter, 9th pick in the draft, tremendous talent, has played 9 snaps in the preseason. Eagles clearly like what they've seen from him in their training camp, in their joint practices. Huge, strong, explosive. You watch him and you just see a special talent. Now he's got to put it all together, and there's going to be some technique issues, and there's going to be some very experienced interior offensive linemen who are going to take him to school. But that talent is undeniable. And when you combine Carter and Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox and Milton Williams and Kentavious Street, who's a role player but kind of a pass rusher, gives you some pump inside, and they drafted Moro Ojomo in the 7th round from University of Texas, who's had a really nice summer. Eagles are in great shape interior defensively, and that's after losing Javon Hargrave in free agency, who signs a mega contract with the 49ers. So they've really done a great job of reloading the roster, not rebuilding it, but reloading it. And there's a great young group of the draft classes from the last 2 or 3 years here that are ready to play. They all, it seems, come from major schools. A lot of Georgia Bulldogs here, so this moment is not too big for them. They won national championships back-to-back in college. They step into the NFL. They know it's a different tempo. They know everybody's talented, but the moment has not been too big for them to this point. We'll see what happens when September 10th rolls around.
It's just fascinating and a conversation for another time. But with everything that is happening in college football right now, the fact that you've got these programs like Georgia and some of these other schools that are basically NFL B and have been for some time, producing these strong, talented rookies that are coming in and are unafraid of a moment on an NFL stage that would throw a lot of other guys across the country. It's just wild to see them not miss a step when they step into major roles, starting roles in the NFL. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and Eagles have college Alabama, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Hurts, Oklahoma, Alabama, all these Georgia kids. It does make you realize that the transition is not that huge for many of these players. And while there's always diamonds throughout the landscape in college football, it's not such a bad idea to stick with the major programs. That's what the Eagles have done lately, and they've gotten what they think are going to be great results in 2023 and moving forward.
Dave Spadaro, PhiladelphiaEagles.com, covering the team very closely every single day, every single weekend. Best of luck to you this season. It sounds like from everything that you have detailed to us so generously that the Eagles are set up for another really special season if they can put it all together. Thanks a lot for the time.
My pleasure. Thank you. Anytime. Let's talk NFC East later in the season.
That is a deal. That is a deal, my friend. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.